First things first, Nick, how are you?
I'm good. I'm all right. Thank you.
It's very good to hear. So before we jump into the new album Nine, I'd like to go back to a time in Perth, kind of when you were coming up as a musician, because it seems to me, and this is just from the outside, but that it was a very fruitful musical scene. Um, what do you remember of those early days and those early bands that you were in and kind of the musicians around you?
Um, I remember they were very it was really eclectic. Like it wasn't sort of bound by like genre, but just by everyone's sort of collective weirdness, I suppose. Like we all became really close friends because it's such a small scene in Perth, and you know all of these gigs get put on with like us and Mink Muscle Creek and like you know stoner doom kind of bands like Cease and Okie Okie, who were sort of like 8-bit Casio sounding Nintendo pop, and Chris Kobilis was like sort of laptop experimental performance art. So yeah, I remember it just like really kind of expanded my world. Because we were really young, and I don't think really realized how odd our music was for other people. And yeah, it was just it was really important, like meeting all these kind of older crew with like a very wide artistic scope. And yeah, and then like that was also a time when me and Joe and Kevin and Jay were all living together, and I remember we had like we just had a lot of time. Like I was going to uni and people had jobs and stuff, but like apart from doing those things, we'd just hang out and listen to music and play music like all day. For some reason it was a time before like life admin seemed to exist.
Right, it sounds very idyllic the way you describe it.
Yeah, we had a mulberry tree out the back that we called Mulberria. And it was idyllic. And it's just so weird thinking about like how now, like, as you get older, so much of your free time gets taken up with like just organizing your life. And it's like that didn't exist, or maybe it did and I just like erased it from my memory.
No, I have that too. It feels like I'm filling out forms half of the time these days and just doing admin, as you say.
Yeah.
But that surrounding, did that instill into you? And this is kind of I think something that you had in the band always. But the collective approach, the fact that it was not just a fixed kind of approach to music, but there's always kind of a revolving wheel of musicians and just a very collective approach and perhaps experimental approach to music.
Yeah. I guess we all, it was like a little school that we'd attend every day. And and like feed off each other's ideas and ambitions, and you know, what we were listening to, what we were reading, or how we were recording, or new instruments, and everyone sort of brought in a different thing that you could sort of take in. Like I remember Joe started he started doing really weird stuff after he read Electric Kool-Aid Acid Test. He started doing stuff like I remember once he put a he climbed up the gum tree out the back in Mulberry and put like a microphone up the tree and ran a lead down through our backyard into a speaker that was facing where we'd all hang out through like a delay pedal, so that every time like the wind or trees or a bird or something would make any noise, it was just being sort of constantly fed through an echo thing.
Right.
And Kevin obviously was like way down the line on home recording techniques. And so we all started recording as well. We're like, man, this guy can do it. And like Jay.
What was your sorry? What was your thing? What was the thing that you were really into at that time?
I guess I was really into like medieval literature and stuff at the time, and I think more into like obscure music. Like I remember at the time I was just sort of realizing that about like cosmic music, like I guess krautrock is what they call it, or whatever. Although that's not a very nice way to say it. I think I was more of an avid like music digger, obscure music digger, and yeah, I suppose the the like books and art and stuff like that was pretty big part of like Mink Muscle Creek especially. But yeah, something like that maybe.
Right. But because the reason why I asked about kind of this time is I saw a quote. If we move towards the new album 9, then I saw a quote that you said that you've been craving for collaboration and for a sense of immediacy. So is this kind of the result of kind of the whole COVID thing, or is this kind of thinking back of those times and wanting something like that again?
Maybe a little bit of that, yeah. I'm not sure the root of that craving, to be honest. It's just so fun. And like when you're in a creative industry, it can get pretty confusing, like, because you start having the same demands as like any other industry or job, and that line between that sort of, you know, you can there's a danger of losing that the joy sometimes when you're sort of doing a more like industrialized like production of product, you know.
Sure.
But when you're doing something in a group with people you really like, there's none of that whatsoever. It's just like pure. I mean, you know, sometimes it can be a pain in the ass if you're doing it in the wrong way. But if you're just rehearsing things and like enjoying it and improvising, it's just fun. And it's faster and it's good straight away. It's immediately good and it gets better. You know, which is really different from like sitting at home and hashing things out on a MIDI map.
It becomes too contrived in a way then, if
it can just feel labored.
Right. So well, with that in mind then, what did you try to capture, or what maybe not even try, but what did you capture in kind of this album then, this collection of songs that became 9? What especially now with a bit of separation, I would suppose, how do you look back at this collection of songs in terms of what it represents or what it captured?
Well, there was a little bit of there's a little bit of, some of the songs capture us fucking around like in a room, you know, playing the first thing that comes to our head, like Czech Locomotive and the America's Cup. You know, stuff like that is just taken from us mucking around in a studio. And I mean, there's so much more that we culled that from. There was like hours of shit.
I read somewhere you had about 3 albums, pretty much 3 albums worth of material done. So what made this period then so fruitful?
It was just that. I think it was just deciding to get together, and it for some reason we hadn't wanted to or needed to in the past. Maybe it was like over ambition or like perfection, like needing to write the songs and craft them to make something up to a certain standard. And this time we were just like, look, we've made a couple of albums of, you know, pretty well structured, like well made kind of stuff, and now let's just, you know, let's get back to having a shitload of fun and trying whatever comes out. And I think it was just that we were just ready to have fun. And once you start having fun and releasing the pressure, you just it's fruitful, stuff comes out. And then apart from all that improvisation, there was songs that we had written, and and also COVID did allow for a lot of for me especially, I mean for all of us I think, but for me I wrote a lot of words. And, you know, mucked around in my room with drum machines and tape loop sort of stuff. And a lot of it's not anywhere, it isn't on the album, but I think that did have a part to play, that we actually had time to fuck about. And we also got Dream Dust Studios, the Pond Studios, which gave us a little bit of a spark.
And with what you mentioned now, where does a song like Pink Lunettes fit in? Because I read somewhere that was kind of somewhat of a turning point as well, as far as writing goes. Was that one of the ones that came earlier and kind of gave you the confidence to experiment, or where does that particular song fit in?
I can't remember where it came in. It was sort of, maybe it did come kind of early, but it was from like a little loop that Jay made, like I think it was from like a kind of cheesy keyboard that has like a like where you can hold a key and it sort of plays the bass and along with a little drum machine thing. And it was going and we thought that kind of fit our like ambitions to make something a bit more fast and aggressive and electronic. But just, you know, that's what I mean. We had time to just take that really basic loop and then like build and layer for ages and get it right.
You also said you kind of went to a writing mode by yourself a little bit. Earlier you mentioned going into medieval literature for inspiration. So were there any specific things that you delved into this time that ended up on 9?
Yeah. I mean, not medieval literature. that was many years ago. I've forgotten it all, even though I studied it for 3 years. No, this time I sort of let myself get carried away with small obsessions. Instead of trying to zoom out and look at a sort of bigger picture, I zoomed in to small life details. Because I guess like probably a lot of it was because like everyone else, my world shrunk a lot. So I was letting myself write about just whatever is meaningful and different and personally meaningful for me, like you know, Fig Season or Agnes Martin. So yeah, it was stuff like that, just these little incidental moments in life, or people that I found inspiring. You know, I was thinking I should, you know, like in the last albums when, you know, I started to see a theme forming, I kind of like lent into that theme. I was like, all right, we can sort of go on a, you know, a pseudo like 2112 kind of like, you know, a theme, an album-wide theme. And I think if I'd bothered to do that with this album, it would have been a like biography, like a sort of encyclopedia, a musical encyclopedia of people that I thought were interesting. But I didn't do that.
Well, you mentioned Agnes. Now, her particular then. What piqued your interest with her?
Her art, firstly, and then just her practice and her story, and like I think she also had a real I don't know, a real difficulty with creation as an industry, and but to the point where, you know, she took it to the point of actually being like a dedicated Zen practicer and moving out a long way away into the desert or whatever, wherever it was. And like really being dedicated to not fabricating or forcing her art. She'd just sit on a wheelchair with her eyes closed and wait until the image like crystallized in her mind and then paint it instead of whatever else. And just like when I read some of her letters to her friends and her like her art dealer and stuff, and they're just so cool. She's a fucking rock star. Just so like simple, and you know, like the first line of that song, Beethoven is really about something. I go to bed when it gets dark like a chicken. Let's go to lunch. Was like one of her letters.
Okay.
She just had been like started discovering Beethoven. She goes to bed when it gets dark like a chicken. Let's have lunch. I thought it was beautiful.
With what you now mentioned, and we kind of touched upon it earlier in this interview, but kind of coming full circle then, what is your relationship with the industry? And as you mentioned now, this time around, there was much more the notion of, hey, we just want to have fun. So is there any ambition involved in this album, or is it, how do you balance those two things?
It's hard. It's really hard to balance. You know, it's so easy to become, and I am, and I think we all are, like addicts. Mm. You know, we're addicted to modern life.
Sure.
And approval and congratulations and likes. You know, sure. getting ticks, getting pats on the back. And production, just like endless production and consumption. And that's why I can't go and do what I, you know, almost daily want to do, is go and do an Agnes Martin and get away. But it is really hard. It's hard to consolidate the two things of like, I guess the way, whether it works as well as it could or not, but the way we do with this album was just to have like really just have a lot of fun when you're doing it, and then try not to burn out in the part that comes after, which is packaging and selling.
But I suppose you mentioned something interesting, trying not to burn out. And I would imagine that and I'm not a musician, so this is just speculation, but if you were making album upon album and you're kind of not really enjoying that whole process, that could burn you out, I would say. So is it important to have moments like these where you realize why you're doing it, that you still, this is meant to be something that gives you pleasure, gives you joy, instead of being that business thing that puts food on the table?
Yeah, definitely, man. Definitely. I think if, you know, I mean, it depends what you're doing, but in what we're doing, which is selling something that's meant to be honest and like heartfelt, whether it's fucking big riffs or, you know, trippy shit or whatever else. It's meant to be like it's meant to be honest. And if we were to stop having fun, it would just be, we wouldn't be giving people what what they come to us for, I guess, you know.
Right.
But if you're like you know, maybe if you're making like something else, like music for ads or fuck knows, maybe you can just sit down and do it in a sort of utilitarian way.
Right. Well, it makes sense. Well, finally then, because I should talk about it. I suppose the performance aspect is part of that joy as well. So, and I believe Australia has done quite well with the whole COVID thing, and you have been able to tour a little bit here and there. But was it difficult having that side kind of missing for a while?
Touring?
Yeah, and the kind of the performance aspect of it.
Yeah. Sort of. It was also really amazing. Okay. It was like we've been, you know, I've been touring consistently since I was like 20, 21 or 22 or something. So this is it was the first time that I actually watched. I watched summer turn into winter, turn into summer, and back into winter from the same room, you know? So I got really a lot more in touch with the land, which is so important and so grounding. I started gardening professionally, which helped as well, like, you know, actually feeling, you know, seeing the sun coming up a little bit later every day or a little bit earlier or whatever. And the wind, you know, it's more windy in summer. I didn't know that. You know, everyone else knew this, but I had been flying around too much and, you know, doing the whole rock band performance. And it was great. Yeah, it was really cool seeing seeing the nasturtiums start popping off and then covering everything and then all dying and leaving their little seeds and then coming up again.
See the whole cycle of life.
Yeah, it was very cool. It was very inspiring. I'd like to do more of that.
Well, let's hope then that when kind of the world opens up again and then you're touring, that you still get a chance to do those kind of things and then set aside time to do those kind of things.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, Nick, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me. It's been a pleasure. Yeah, thank you.
No, thank you.
Okay, so that's where I cut. So where you mentioned you're living in the UK now. So is the nature there a bit more difficult or?
Yeah, totally. I mean, we don't even have a home yet. So I've gone from being like very grounded to being completely sort of cut adrift, you know.
Right, and then in a different country as well, where it's probably gray skies a lot of the times.
Well, it is now, yeah. But it's cool. I'm excited to get into it and like explore the new plants and set up a smaller but hopefully even more productive garden.
Right.
You know, I've been fantasizing about it furiously about making this apartment jungle, you know.
To become self-sustainable in a sense, eating from it and stuff.
Yeah. Well, I just started getting deep into that in Perth, and was starting to get a good yield of cucumbers and all this stuff. But then I moved over here, so I got to start again.
Yeah, I don't know about. I don't know where you are in England, but if it's London, I hope you can find a garden somewhere because that might be tricky.
Yeah, well, we're moving into a place without a garden, but it has a rooftop.
Oh, okay. So you could put stuff up there, yeah.
Fuck yeah, sun, sun, whenever there's sun.
Right. That sounds good. Nick, once again, thank you so much. And yeah, I hope you have a great day.
Sweet. You too, bro.
All right. Have a good one.